Okay, so hopefully this will work, and it will be a new uh, video under a new title. Yeah, okay, let's just make sure. I'm going to make sure that that's the case. Uh, okay, 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 I think it worked. Okay, so I'm just going to, I'm going to watch the live chat, although I don't think anyone's going to be on there. Um, okay. So I guess I'm just gonna talk about probably some philosophy stuff. Maybe I'll read some poetry that I wrote. Um, but yeah, let's see. How can I get this? I want to be able to see the live chat and see myself. Um, there we go. Okay. 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 All right. Um. So I guess one of the more interesting things that I believe is that knowledge is not possible. So I guess people usually disagree with that. So I think that might be interesting to talk about. Um, I'm gonna post a link to this on my Facebook really quick, just because. Um, okay, so um, okay, um, so I was gonna talk about why I think that knowledge is not possible. Um, Basically, there's a lot of different ways that I can explain it. Um, there's a very like strict kind of mathematical way that I can explain it, but I can also there's a very simple way too. If you just if you so first of all we have to define knowledge. So knowledge, as I define it, is um, in order if you know something, if you know, and I'm talking about knowledge of claims, knowledge of something that's true, not knowing how to ride a bike. There's a difference between knowing how to ride a bike versus knowing that that chair is right there, or that this painting behind me exists, or that even that if you move your hands in a certain way with the bike, that it's going to turn a certain way. Um, so I'm talking about the the latter, the uh, knowledge that a claim is true. So in order to know that a claim is true, um, you have to, well, first obviously you have to believe the claim. You have to believe that the claim is true. For example, um, I exist. That's a claim. Um, so you have to believe that the claim is true. It has to actually be true, which sometimes there's ways to verify and sometimes there isn't. But it has to actually be true, and you have to have it has to be a warranted belief, and that's where you get the problem. And that's where if that weren't required, then maybe knowledge would be possible. But when I say that it has to be warranted, what that means is that it can't just be luck. So if I flip a coin right now, and a whole bunch of people guess as to whether it's going to land on heads or tails, and some of them happen to be right, so they um, they guess, and then I flip, and then I reveal, and then some of them were right. That doesn't mean they knew that the claim. So let's say it's landed on heads. That doesn't mean that they knew that it was going to land on heads. That just means that they believed it, and it turned out to be true, but it was because of luck. So there's it's called the anti-luck intuition in philosophy, and I believe in that knowledge isn't just getting it right, but getting it right in such a way that it's repeatable, or that you use some kind of universal logic or some way to make it that it was warranted, not just luck. Okay, so now that we have that definition of knowledge out of the way, um, I'm going to talk about why I think it's not possible. Belief, I think you can believe things. Yeah, I think that you can. I believe that you can get things right too, but I just think that you can't know them. So the warranted part is the part that's the problem for me. Um, so you have so if you let's take a claim that you say that so in math there's different ways to prove things, and basically what I'm gonna do is prove that there's no the knowledge is not possible. So I'm gonna do a proof by contradiction. So I'm going to suppose that the opposite of what I want to say is true. So I'm going to suppose that you can know something, and then from that I will conclude some contradiction. So basically what I'm saying is that if you can know something, then a contradiction result is a consequence of that. So um, so let's say you know something. You know that the claim is true. Um, so that means that it was warranted. So things that do not warrant a belief in a claim include blind faith. That's just as good as luck. It being self-evident. Um, I mean, that's circular. That's so circular to say that something is self-evident, that it's evidence of itself. That's you're saying that if A, then A, essentially. So so if I exist, then I exist, with the claim that we're using as an example. So that's not a warrant. That's not something that you can point to and say, I know that I exist because the claim I exist is self-evident because it proves itself somehow. That's that's literally the simplest version of a circular argument that you could possibly make. Where a circular argument is something where the conclusions are in the premises. Um, okay, so no blind faith, no self evidence. So then what else is there? You have to basically you have to have proved it in some sense, or there has to exist a proof. So, which means that you have to have premises, and we already said that circularity is not a cool thing. It's not. It's not. You can't. You can't say that a claim is warranted if it's based on a circular argument. So it has to be premises, and they have to be different than the conclusion that I am. So I would argue that the famous I think it was Descartes who said I think therefore I am. I would argue that that's a circular argument um, because when you say I think, what you're saying is something exists and it thinks, and you identify with that thing. So the conclusion is is there in the premises. Um, so, but let's say you came up with something else, right? You would have the same problem because in order for the proof to be sound, not only does your inference, not only does it have to make sense to say that if the premises is true, then the conclusion is true. Not only does argument form have to be valid, but the premises also have to be true. And so you can't, and if you don't know that the premises are true, then you don't know that the conclusion is true. So you have this, so you have to then, you basically, we've shifted the problem from I am to whatever you use to support that. And that could be one statement or it could be multiple. Um, but you could always put it into one because you could always just say, if you have a four statement, say this one and this one and this one, and that just makes one big long statement. So um, okay, right. So we just shifted the problem over, and essentially, if you can already see it forming, it's like in order to prove the final thing that you're trying to prove, you have to prove something else. In order to prove that thing, you have to prove something else, and so it's kind of a chain that keeps going. Um, and the only way that the chain ever stops, assuming that it does stop, I guess you could argue that maybe the chain goes on forever, uh, but I don't think that's really realistic. Um, I think at some point it's going to either stop, at which point you're saying, I believe in something, and it's blind faith because there's nothing, I have no reason to believe it, no proof of it. Or what's going to happen is you're going to run into something that you've already said. So in that case, so let's say, um, it's hard to come up with examples for these things, but like, uh, well, so this one obviously isn't true, but just as an example, um, so if you say I think therefore I am, and why are you? Because you think, and why do you think? Because you are, or something, where that's like a circle, a loop, and then a split off from that is because I can think, I can also, I don't know, breathe. It's obviously not true, but um, so then what you have there is what I just said. What you have something where you said, okay, I breathe. Why can I breathe? Because I exist. Is that right? Yeah, because I exist. And then why can you exist? Because you are. And then, or sorry, because you think. Why do you think? Because you exist. So the loop is over here, and this splintered off from it. But it's this thing over here is counting on this whole loop to be true, and that's essentially it's based off of a circular argument. So um, that will also not work. So essentially, you got this end of this chain, and you're trying to figure out what to do with it. And either you loop it back onto itself, or you just end it and you say you have faith in something. But even if you like, not to be clear, neither of those actually solves the problem. That's just admitting defeat to the problem of trying to know something, or trying to prove that you can know something. So essentially, what I'm saying is, if you can know something, then you have this chain, and then and by definition, knowing means you're not basing it on circularity, or on faith, and it turns out that you're basing it on either circularity or faith. So that's a contradiction. Um, okay, I think I was said I might read some poetry, so I think I might do that now. Um, let's see. Okay, I'll do this one. Hold on to whatever strings you have. Hold on and maybe you'll make a thread. Hold on to whatever seeds you have. Hold on and maybe make some bread. Let the moment catch you. Let the moment snatch you. Let it take you. Pray that it bakes you. Make it immersive. Let yourself simmer a bit. Follow the white rabbit. Here and now. Be the how. Save the why. Let it happen. And don't map it. After all, you can't map the sky. Just close your eyes and fly. Forget September, November, December. Remember the summer. Riding in a Hummer. Sleeping under stars. The stars are watching me, pushing light into my scars. Okay, so this one I'm going to read it and then I'm going to kind of give some interpretation of it. So this one's called Childhood. Some people escape, others get dragged out. Unlike the race car I used to drive, childhood doesn't look the same forward and backwards. As long as, as long as I'm alive, I'll see mine as a bat would. So, so it's about childhood, obviously, and it's saying some people kind of escape, which means like they kind of wanted to leave childhood and kind of be older or what they saw as more mature. Other people kind of resist leaving their childhood and get dragged out by time. Um, and so the part that says, unlike the race car I used to drive, that's kind of a play on words because race car is a palindrome, which means it looks the same forward and backward. Um, it's spelled the same forward and backward. Um, and it says, unlike the race car I used to drive, childhood doesn't look the same forward and backward. So, in the sense of it doesn't look the same kind of when you're in it or when you're looking forward to it in time versus when you look back on it. And it says, as long as I'm alive, I'll see mine as a bat would, which is means I'll see mine kind of in a backward, looking back at it or looking, because a bat, I guess I should have said sleeping, but like when they sleep upside down, um, that's what I was trying to refer to. Uh, what else? It's a good one. We put protest signs in kids' arms to show that their minds, their perfect minds, are in sync with ours. In doing so, I find, we become the harm we set out to leave behind. And that's just about how, um, as a society, we want to confirm our own beliefs, and one way that we do that is by saying, like, for example, if you're Catholic or something, you might baptize a kid and say that's a Catholic child. And oh, look, it's so perfect and it's Catholic and therefore Catholicism is perfect or something. You don't usually say that last part, but I don't know. Or if you're Democrat or Republican or want or feel strongly about some position that you might protest for, you might put a protest sign into a kid's arms or something and praise the kid for going along with it, and then the kid learns that that's a good thing that makes the parents happy or whatever, or the other people maybe, the culture makes society happy, the immediate surroundings, and so they do it more. Um, but essentially, what I'm trying to say is that people kind of use kids to make their side seem like the innocent, perfect side, and in doing so, I think that's harmful to the kid. It's really hard not to do, but it's also harmful to the kid, and that can and it can even be the same kind of harm that you're trying to fight against. For example, if the protest is against Catholic indoctrination, then you're fighting against indoctrination, but that's what you're doing if you bring your kid there and without giving them all the facts and without while they're able to understand it and stuff. Um, okay, I think I'm gonna end it there. All right, so next time probably some more of the same. Maybe I'll get more into politics. Don't know when that's gonna happen though. The next stream. All right. Well, thank you if anyone watches this, and leave a comment or whatever in the chat or and if they I don't know, I'm not sure if they have comments for archive streams, but yeah. Okay. See you in the next video.